One of the biggest critical successes of 2019 so far has been the Comedy Central show The Other Two. It was created by Kelly and Sarah Schneider, the Emmy-nominated former head writers at SNL, and they join us for today's chat. I'm Charlie Bright, contributing writer of Gold Derby, which pulls the predictions of experts and thousands of fans like you. My first question, Chris and Sarah, is where did the idea for this show come from?
Oh, yeah.
When we were at SNL, we were batting around a bunch of ideas. And we basically kept coming back to the idea of writing a show where the main characters felt kind of based on us, or the way we talked, the way that we related to each other. Mm-hmm. But we kept coming back to the idea of like comparing yourself to other people and always wondering if you're doing well enough or if you're doing well enough, fast enough in your life. And we were like, who would be the worst possible person to compare yourself to? And we were like, what if your much younger little brother who's moderately talented became a superstar and got everything you wanted? So that was sort of the jumping off point. And we talked about other ideas for shows, but that premise we kept coming back and pitching jokes for that premise instead. And so it just felt like we were onto something.
Yeah. So. And we knew we wanted to kind of tell like the grounded stories like Chris was saying, but we also, when we were at SNL before this, and we loved writing like a lot of music videos there. We wrote a lot of the girls' music videos, and those were always like the most fun shoots that we had and the most fun we had writing. So this let us tell our grounded stories, but also shoot our big dumb music videos.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting that you brought up that you were incorporating characteristics from your own selves into these characters. I'm guessing of Carrie and Brooke.
Yeah.
What were some of those traits that you found yourselves drawing on for these characters?
Yeah, well, we talked really early on that we didn't want the show just to be as simple as their little brother's famous and they're jealous of him, and that they resented him, because we didn't think that had a lot of mileage, and that felt a little like maybe easier, more expected. So we really just talked about real insecurities we've had in our lives, either in relationships or me as a gay person kind of navigating coming out of the closet, and my sexuality when I was less comfortable in my own skin. And we talked about ways that Chase's fame would force Cary to be more comfortable in his in his sexuality, or that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, and just the idea of like both of our characters are sort of like thrust to reconsider their lives, like Chris was saying, and both of them are kind of realizing that they aren't doing as good or as well as they thought or hoped they would be at this point. And particularly Brooke decides to like blow up her entire life because a small child is doing better than her. And so as wacky as that is, and as kind of like big as Helena is, who's amazing in it, we think the grounded underlying idea behind that, which is just the terror and the uncertainty of starting over when you feel like you should be settled into a career and settled into a relationship, we can like really relate to that.
And also just on a smaller level, just the way we talk and like our references and the TV shows that we watch, and the celebrities that we know, you know what I mean? Just the way they talk back and forth to each other, their reference points are basically our reference points too.
So like the reference point of there's nothing more hetero than watching Survivor.
Oh, actually, no.
You called out the one that's not
actually
Charlie.
No. That is so funny because somebody else, people have asked me about that a lot, and weirdly, I will say that Cary's struggle with his sexuality is based on things I went through when I was younger, but also the straight roommate's love for Survivor is also based on me because I love Survivor. It's the best show. It's the greatest game. So.
We have a Survivor prediction center at this website, and we have a bunch of people that love that show. So believe me, it is. I was actually wondering where that came from because I was like, oh, that might rub some people on our site the wrong way.
Well, I know you have it on your website because I read it.
What you mentioned that this was something that you had an idea for when you were since you were writing on SNL. Was after doing the movie Other People, did you want to make was there a conscious effort to sort of go in a more solidly comedic direction with what you wanted to do next?
No, no, not necessarily. I just kind of wanted to, and we both wanted to like write what was specifically interesting to us and what made us laugh. So for me, I felt very lucky that I got to make Other People, even though I'd only done SNL before. And so that was a very like sad, small indie drama. Yeah, so I guess I don't really think about it as a comedy versus drama, as just like what next thing really interests me, or what do I find myself talking about a lot, or when we brainstorm ideas, like what just feels right. So who knows what we'll work on next, and maybe it will be more of a drama, but yeah, we didn't really think about it like that, if that makes sense.
And so even though our show is a comedy and that's what we wanted it to be first, and we love writing quick jokes and we like packing the show with a lot of like references and things, we spend the first few weeks of our writer's room last season and this season too talking about the drama that's kind of at the heart of it, like what the family is going through and what we're basing all this comedy on. So hopefully there's kind of like a like heart, or there is like a solid underpinning of thoughtful story under the whole season, under the whole show, and then the comedy is kind of like sprinkled on top.
Yeah, like we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the season talking about this is weirdly also a show about grief and about a family dealing with grief in the spotlight, and everyone is just not dealing with some real things they need to be dealing with. So we talked about that a lot in the room. Like if you took Chase out of it and took his fame out of it, Cary would be still struggling with his sexuality. Brooke would still have to figure out like, what next for me? What else do I care about? Pat, the mom, would still have to be dealing with her husband's grief. But then we just add fame to it, and how does that, mess it all up? So it feels very pretentious to talk about it. Like, actually, our show's a drama, but we really did try to put in a lot of work to make sure that even though it's hopefully packed with jokes, that every character starts an episode one way and ends the episode another way, that they're always learning or moving forward a little bit. Yeah.
So, as you were saying, you were talking about the central characters of Cary and Brooke, played by Drew and Helena, and they are fantastic in it. What made you both determine that they were the right choices to play Cary and Brooke?
That was like a long process because we really didn't know exactly what we were looking for specifically with the character of Brooke. We kind of wrote her on the page and it could have gone any number of ways. So that was one of those classic casting stories that you hear and you're like, oh, shut up, where we were like just looking for someone to come in and like bring that character to life for us. And Helena really did that for us. We had loved her on High Maintenance and just kept asking to bring her in. And when she came in, we just knew.
Yeah.
And same with Drew. He's just so understated and so funny, and it has such a face that you are like allowed to humiliate. So likable, and he just really pulls off with such like comedic like integrity so many of the stories that we wrote for him, and the two of them together are very complementary but very different, and that was also what we were looking for because we didn't really want them to be the same.
We really wanted people who could be the straight man and not the straight man, like depending on the episode or even depending on the line, quite frankly. So they both were really good at that.
And speaking of, all these layered characters, you do have even the craziest character can be layered on the show. And of course, I'm talking about Streeter, played by the great Ken Marino. Was there anything you would write for the character and think to yourself, we're going too far with this?
That's a good question. Well, we generally wanted to make sure, Ken is a genius, and so he really could pull off a lot of the things that we wrote, but we were like, we have this man dyeing a child's tongue. So is that too far? Is that just far enough? Is that still in the realm of possibility, but so ridiculous that you get that it's obviously a satire and it's just a joke? And he really was able to like carry a lot of those things that felt like they could have been on the line in lesser hands.
Whenever we wrote something that was like too stupid or too broad or too over the top, we always had to make sure that we could tether it to something that felt real. So even if we were like exaggerating it times 10, it was based in realness. So like Chase sneaking into a high school through the ventilation system feels similar to like the pictures that went around of Taylor Swift, being carted around in a suitcase. Or, everything is sort of based on something that is real, even if we're changing it a little bit. Because it is great. As silly as the show gets, there are definitely things, I can't think of any right now, where we're like, oh, that's so silly, and I can't picture what the real world version of that is. Yeah.
And for him, like him showing up to a child's 14th birthday party with a full like convertible for him when he doesn't even drive is so outlandish, but it's rooted for Streeter specifically in his like wanting to feel included and feel needed and feel essential. That's like, it's such a deep rooted vulnerability that it comes across, it should come across as so like stupid and big, and it does, but there's kind of this other layer to it that
just
we really
like me.
Yeah, like me.
No, yeah, how he's always asking, were you talking about me? Were you talking about me behind my back? Yeah. And it's never like menacing. He's always like genuinely like, why don't you people like me?
Yeah. As soon as Molly Shannon says to him casually, like, I know everybody else laughs at you, but I think you're great. He's like, everyone's laughing at me? Like, you expect that character not to respond to that line. And then you're like, oh no.
That cracked him right down the middle.
Yeah, like, I know I'm a crazy character, but I still heard you say that. That's insane. People laugh at me? So
it's like
humanizing him, yeah.
Yeah, it's like on The Simpsons when Bart goes, you can see the exact moment where his heart rips in two right now.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned before, you also have Molly Shannon working on this project as Pat. She's so good in it, as she is in almost everything. What's the connection been like between you and Molly Shannon? Because you also wrote for her and directed her and other people.
Yeah, I mean, I never met or worked with her before other people. That was just a cold call, reach out. You know, manager sent scripts and then she said yes to doing it. So I didn't know her before that, but then working on that with her was so lovely. She's the most talented person. She's so funny, but never in a broad way. You always believe her. She's so, as a dramatic actor, is not, you know, I don't know, as a dramatic actor, you never feel her like acting with a capital A and taking her moment. She just feels so grounded and like a real person. Plus behind the scenes, she's the loveliest. So we were just we were like, oh, that's who should play Pat. I don't know if she's available or will want to do it. But when she said yes, it was nice because we wrote the pilot without her in mind because we didn't want to presume she would do it. But then once she was attached, we really wrote the whole season probably differently than we would have. We probably leaned into her grief and her husband more because we were like, we've got Molly here. We want to like, if you got Molly Shannon, you got to like really like let her fly. So that was one of the best parts of doing the show, was getting to work with her for sure.
And something else I should have asked this at the beginning, but where did the genesis of your relationship with each other come from? How did you two first meet?
Yeah, we were hired randomly the same season at SNL. So like we both had been working on the internet writing. He was at The Onion and I was at College Humor, and we got hired the same season. And we like knew of each other just because, as you do, we were both in like New York comedy scene, internet scene. And
the New York comedy internet scene. You've heard of it.
It's iconic.
It's all in one building, right?
Yeah. He was floor 5, I was floor 6. And so then you just get hired we got hired the same year randomly. And then when you get hired, there's kind of like a class you come in with and you start to write with them because you're all new and you all need someone to write with you. And so we just slowly started writing with each other and found that it was working, and we found that our voices were similar or complementary, and the rest is history, herstory.
So you mentioned before we started that you're in the middle of writing season 2, which I'm very sorry to be taking you away from because I want you to get back to it as soon as possible. Are there any juicy bits you can tell us about, not necessarily maybe plot points, but maybe characters that we might see again in season 2?
Ooh, that's a good question. What doesn't give anything away?
Yeah, we're writing episode 2 right now, but we broke the whole season already, so we kind of know generally what's happening. Basically, I guess without spoiling too much, you know, if you've watched the first season and you've watched till the end, you know that there's like a little twist where Molly Shannon's character, Pat, now might be the one in the spotlight, and she might be famous. So, so yeah, that's kind of basically the jumping off point for season 2, is they spent so long being like, my little brother became famous out of nowhere. And then slowly but surely you saw, if you look back at it, you saw Pat's inevitable rise. And so now it's, what is it like to feel like the other two, to not just your younger brother, but your mother. That kind of thing of like, you know, they ask themselves all season 1, what does my brother have that I don't have? How can I use him or not use him, or ride his coattails, or how do I want to and should I? And season 2, what does it happen when it happens? What do you do when it happens again to you? But in kind of the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't really say a lot. I don't know. More Molly Shannon, I guess.
Yeah, more Molly Shannon.
Will we be seeing? I know at the end of season 1, the character of Chase indicates that he's not really wanting to pursue the famous life anymore.
Yeah.
Will we still be seeing Chase in the second season?
We will. We will be seeing him.
Yes,
okay.
He's in college. He's gone to college, but he's still part of the family. So, yes.
Yeah. So that tweet from NYU was serious, I guess.
It was real.
Yes. But in general, we kind of were like, we didn't want to just blow up the season just to blow it up. It was more like, just constantly shifting the dynamics in the family. Like, what are new, interesting ways to feel like otherized around within your own family? And we were just like interested by the idea of like Molly's character, Pat, being, she basically becomes famous because she had a huge blow up on a plane and like cried and screamed about her dead husband. And as bizarre as that moment was and as crazy as it was authentic. And it was a real woman sharing real pain. And it makes sense that America would respond to that. And so we like that it was accidental, but people are like, oh, who's that? Who's that woman speaking honestly? I want to hear more about her.
Yeah.
And then Brooke and Carrie are like, wait, what? We're excited to have more Molly Shannon in the show.
But at the end of the day, they are a family. So we love Case Walker, who plays Chase. We love and think he is so great. And so we definitely we want them to be a family still. And just what Chris was saying, the dynamics shifting within.
Like what happens when one family member wants out and the other one is now in.
Wants in.
And then the other two still want in. So bad.
And there's still the other two.
Yes. Yeah. The title still works.
So, just one thing I wanted to round this out with is, we are an awards website. We're, all, big nuts for the Emmys coming up. Is there a specific episode that you two would want to submit for the writing category that you think is of season 1 that you think best reflects what the show was?
Yeah, we have a couple favorites that we love. We loved episode 104, which is Chase Gets the Gaze, which is the My Brother's Gay music video and kind of all the like back and forth with the media, response to it. We really loved that episode. We loved that music video, and we loved the journey it took Carrie on specifically. And Brooke is so big and funny and giving it her all in that episode too. And we really just liked how that came together and how it's structured. And then our other favorite, which is just, we have to love it, is 109, which is the plane episode. We always knew we wanted to do a bottle episode. We love bottle episodes as TV fans. And we thought we tried to think of a unique way to do it within the world of our show. And it was a album release party on a plane.
Yeah, and it was kind of the episode that the whole season was building to the whole time. And we were like, planting little things here and there to lead up to it. So that was sort of like our big moment, like when we were breaking the season. So yeah, that episode I guess stands out to us. But you tell us, what should we do?
What's your favorite?
I definitely have to agree with you about 109. Chase on a Plane is one of my absolute. Is so great. It's so wonderfully contained. Every bit of dialogue is fantastic, and it advances the story beautifully.
Oh, that's nice.
That's
Thank
nice.
you.
Thanks for your help.
Well, Chris and Sarah, thanks very much, and good luck on this year's Emmys. Everybody hit the like button to subscribe to our Gold Derby channel and click on our interviews through our Emmy playlist. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks.